Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, who is Tim Walz? We'll take a closer look at the Minnesota governor, who's now a vice presidential candidate. And we'll hear from officials with AAA about the importance of staying safe when driving through traffic lights.
And live pinpoint Doppler radar showing a clean sweep across the area, but there's some relief in sight. Details in a few minutes.
Dedicated to southern and eastern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 5:30.
Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley. Earlier today, Vice President Kamala Harris picked who will be her running mate for this year's election. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz was chosen out of a handful of candidates. Walz beat out Governor of Pennsylvania Josh Shapiro and Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, among others. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg and U.S. Senator Mark Kelly out of Arizona had also been in the running. Now, the Democratic vice presidential candidate will spend the next days and weeks introducing himself to more Americans. In fact, as we speak, he and the vice president, Kamala Harris, are getting ready to hold their first rally together. CBS's Esme Murphy takes a look at Walz's background as a veteran teacher, congressman, and governor who has weathered a few storms and generated a few headlines.
I am the chair of the Democratic Governors Association.
Tim Walz was born in the spring of 1964 and grew up in small-town Nebraska.
Look, I went to a high school, 400 people in the town, 24 kids in my class.
He joined the National Guard as a teenager, using the GI Bill to pay tuition. Walz would serve in the National Guard for the next 24 years. After graduating, he taught in China for a year. Then he returned to Nebraska, where he began his career as a school teacher. In the 90s, he married his wife, Gwen, a fellow teacher, and moved to Mankato, Minnesota. He was first elected to Congress in 2006 from Minnesota's 1st congressional district, beating the Republican incumbent by more than 5 percentage points. Walz would serve in Congress for the next 12 years.
The only thing I heard from the people out here is we're going to rebuild, and they said we're not looking for handouts, we're just looking for a hand up.
He ran for governor in 2018, beating Republican Jeff Johnson by more than 11 points.
I will be your governor just as much as I will be for the people in this room.
The defining moments of his first term came in a tumultuous year, 2020. First came the COVID pandemic. Walz supported major lockdowns,
Pushing the envelope as close as I can to opening things up.
Then on May 25th, George Floyd was killed by Minneapolis police. Massive demonstrations turned violent, and entire blocks of the Twin Cities burned.
This is life-threatening, dangerous.
After 3 days, Walz called in the National Guard, criticized for not doing it sooner. He also weathered the country's largest pandemic fraud scandal and maintained his administration did everything it could once it learned of the fraud. Despite escalating criticism, Walz easily won re-election in 2022.
We're going to see things that are able to move forward.
Walz passed a sweeping progressive agenda that included free school meals, codifying abortion rights, legalizing marijuana, enacting paid family leave, and more.
We're pretty sure it's going to mean a fairer, more inclusive, better, and more prosperous Minnesota.
The Walz have 2 children, Hope, 23, and Gus, 17. The governor has been candid about building their family through in vitro fertilization. Esme Murphy, CBS News, Minnesota.
In a statement on social media, Vice President Kamala Harris says one thing that stood out to her about Governor Walz was his, quote, deep personal conviction fighting for middle-class families. Coming up in our next half hour, more about what's next for Governor Andy Beshear after not being chosen as Kamala Harris's running mate. And here's part of a statement President Joe Biden posted on social media about the selection of Tim Walz. Quote, I've known Tim Walz for nearly 2 decades, first during his time in Congress and as governor. A husband and father, he's been a school teacher and a high school football coach. As governor, he's been a strong, principled, and effective leader. The Harris-Walz ticket will be a powerful voice for working people and America's great middle class, end quote. A West Virginia man wanted out of Kanawha County for strangulation has been arrested. Reginald Corzell Moore was arrested in Dayton, Ohio this morning. U.S. Marshals report Moore had been on the run since July of last year. Investigators discovered Moore had been traveling and hiding from law enforcement in West Virginia, Ohio, and Michigan. He is currently awaiting extradition back to West Virginia. After nearly 9 months, the wait to sell recreational marijuana in our bordering state of Ohio is over. Nearly 100 Ohio dispensaries received the green light to start selling recreational marijuana. Last year, Ohioans voted to legalize recreational marijuana for people 21 years or older, but the rules had to be finalized and licenses issued before sales could begin. Coming up at 6, we'll have more about the possible impact this could have on Kentucky. The National Transportation Safety Board is holding a 2-day hearing on the mid-flight blowout of a door panel back in January. Executives from Boeing and its subcontractor Spirit Aerosystems are being questioned about the frightening incident on board a 737 MAX jet during an Alaska Airlines flight. A preliminary NTSB report found that 4 bolts that helped secure the door plug were not replaced after a repair job in a Boeing factory.
Caution here. This isn't a PR campaign for Boeing. What we want to know is what happened in March, April, May, June, July, August, September, leading up to this, leading up to what happened in January.
Earlier this year, the FAA put a cap on Boeing's production of 737 MAX planes until its safety measures improve. Hamas has announced who the next head of its political bureau will be. In a statement issued today, Hamas announced its leader in Gaza, Yahya Sinwar, will replace Ismail Haniyeh as the head of its political bureau. Haniyeh was assassinated in Tehran, the capital of Iran, last week.
Well, as expected, temperatures were in the low 90s again today. Some places seeing heat indices in the triple digits. Here's the latest now with live pinpoint Doppler radar. All is quiet as of 5:37, and you can see this will get a break as we go into the next several hours. But right now, we find temperatures in the 90s. 90 in Moorhead, 91 Jackson, 90 in Hazard, 92 Harlan, Jacksboro, and Monticello. Your sensors are currently down at this hour. 91 in Somerset, 91 in London. Take a look at feels like temperatures. 101 is the feels like temperature in Lexington. Monticello at the last hour had a feels like temperature of 106. 98 in Manchester, 102 Ashland, 84 in Wise, 95 in Jonesville, as well as Harlan. So when you wake up in the morning, we'll see temperatures in the mid to upper 60s. Will stay mostly clear across eastern Kentucky, but we do have a chance of a shower and thunderstorm in the forecast tomorrow. It's a small chance, but a chance nonetheless. And then there's some relief somewhere. We'll talk about that in the first alert forecast in a few minutes. Steve.
All right, thank you, Eric. This week is National Stop on Red Week, a reminder to encourage folks to stay safe when driving through traffic lights. Alexa Minton spoke with AAA about the importance of staying extra cautious on the roadways.
It's a huge problem not only for Kentucky, but across the country.
Stopping at red lights might seem like common sense, but according to AAA of the Bluegrass, some Kentuckians could use a reminder.
Last year in Kentucky alone, we had over 3,900 crashes that involved a motorist ignoring a traffic signal, and unfortunately that resulted in 46 fatalities.
According to the National Association of City Transportation, folks on average spend a maximum of 60 to 90 seconds waiting for a red light to turn green, but oftentimes aggressive drivers show a lack of patience when speeding through an intersection.
Across the nation, we're seeing over 1,000 fatalities every year due to red light runners, as we call them.
But safe driving practices aren't always about the vehicle you're in control of. It's also about checking your mirrors, making sure the people driving around you aren't distracted as well.
If you are first in line and the light turns to green, don't just bolt out. Keep yourself safe and just take that second or two to make sure that oncoming traffic has stopped, that you don't have a red light runner coming at you.
Safe driving practices are important year-round, and things like avoiding speeding and not running through a yellow or stale green light could make the difference to save a life.
So when you think about people trying to save that tiny bit of time and putting their lives and others' lives at risk over those few seconds, it's a very sad situation.
In Lexington, Alexa Minton, WKYT.
Distracted driving and speeding are the top causes of red light running, according to AAA. It's always important to be wary of pedestrians as well when approaching intersections. Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, preparing for your child to go to college can be daunting, particularly when you think about the price tag. How to reduce college expenses.
And in the world of weather, we're seeing plenty of sunshine and temperatures in the low 90s. We'll continue that streak tomorrow, but there's a change somewhere. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. Stay with us.